Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Steel and Velvet Podcast. I am Nash.
I am Macey Marks.
And we are happy to be back with another episode.
21.
Episode
2-1.
21.
Okay.
I have not heard that joke in a long time.
I feel like I have.
I feel like it's dying off. If anybody else who's
It only took 10 years.
around our age,
Yeah.
let me know. No, but like 21's always been a classic.
I feel like I saw a meme
Joke.
or a reel and it said, kids nowadays don't know that. And you know that generation.
True.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I think the 21 joke is dying off, and I don't know how I feel about it.
There's no facts, just pure.
Because like when I turned 21, I remember nobody making jokes about it. And I was expecting them to make jokes about me turning 21.
I think
and ask me,
did.
What's 9 plus 10? But nobody knows the answer anymore.
I thought you were asking
They're
me
all
to finish
saying
that.
19 now.
Yeah.
Nobody's saying 21.
Yeah.
Anyway, was not expecting the podcast to start like that. Just had it. I guess that was something I felt like I needed to say.
Yeah. I kind of miss Vine.
Yeah.
Reels just don't.
Macey doesn't have a super long attention span, so the 5-second Vines are perfect
6 seconds.
for her. Whatever
Pardon
they were.
me.
6 seconds
Yeah.
is perfect.
Yeah. What do you mean I don't have a long attention span? Okay, I'm
Just
sorry.
scrolling.
That's... What? You don't think I have a long attention span?
No, anybody who knows Macey would probably agree with that.
That... What... In what context? I want to...
I think most things.
Like what?
If
Give me one example.
If I'm talking to you and there's like something that is like on your mind, you're
like
not there.
Like a chocolate croissant.
Exactly. It's just somebody else is behind, is like giving me nods.
Or is it just that I can't multitask? We were just talking about this a minute ago.
Okay, but you can also, when it comes to conversation or certain things, you can say that's a lack of attention span.
Okay. Whatever. Anyway, going off of that, what are we going to talk about today?
So, we're just going to have a really honest conversation. We were just kind of talking about this week's podcast and
what we wanted it to look like.
But we read this was back on March 20th. We kind of came back to it and we were like, let's just have kind of an open conversation like it would be like for our morning time when we're kind of reading our devotionals together. And so we just kind of wanted to keep it pretty casual. So there's a specific page or like a Devo that we read and just kind of wanted to read that whole page with you guys, and then we'll talk about it. Or Macey will kind of stop in certain parts to talk about it if you want to.
Yeah. I'm going to read through it and then we can just talk about what we thought.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yep.
Okay. The wounds of a friend. Since God's relationship to us is meant to be our model for marriage, speaking the truth in love would be our goal even if we are not commanded to do it in Ephesians 4:15. Harsh denunciations, no matter how truthful, never change anyone. Sentimental or worse, fearful, approval of everything your spouse does is a form of stealth cruelty. It is not loving to see someone's faults, see how they hurt him or her and those around them, and yet say nothing. At the very least, a marriage ought to be as good as a good friendship, where iron sharpens iron. Proverbs 27:17, and the wounds from a friend can be trusted, but an enemy multiplies kisses. Proverbs 27:6. Then there's a reflection afterwards that asks, couples, do you lovingly Couples, do you lovingly dare to help your beloved even if you know the truth will hurt? What measures do you take to make your communication as gentle as possible without compromising the truth? So,
That's such a good thought.
What are your initial thoughts?
I liked the part where, or not the part, the verse where it talks about the enemy gives a multitude of kisses. I think it's so important that you don't just have like yes men, number one in your life, but also that your spouse isn't just going to be a yes man. Like I want Macey to tell me if she sees something in me that is, number one, not godly, it's not, pleasing to God.
Yeah.
That's what I want to do. And number one, it just probably wouldn't be attractive to you, right? When you just take it to a human level, it probably would be something that's not attractive. Now, there's a way you can say that, right? It's not just saying that you hate what I'm doing or whatever it is. Like, there's a way of going about it, and that's what a friend should do, right? And so it even goes further from like the an intimate relationship. It goes just like a friendship type relationship to where you shouldn't even let your friends just think they're doing everything, phenomenal if there aren't, and if they are, that's, it's fine, but most people are not perfect, right? And that if there's flaws that we see in them that are genuinely going to affect their spirit called out in a loving way.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's at a way higher standard when it comes to being in a relationship.
I think it's a responsibility.
Yeah.
It really is a responsibility. I think you do that really well. An example I feel like that I can think of right now is 2 days ago, if that. I think you were... I have a tendency, everybody, to...
A few days ago is a couple months.
No. I'm not even talking about that. I'm saying I have a tendency to...
But that's also true.
It is also true. I'll say the other day about 10 minutes ago. I'll say the other day about 2 months ago.
Or 2
5 years. I don't even... It's... My family does it. We all do it. I don't know what... And now I think you're starting to do it, so I apologize. I have a tendency to over-ask. Like, I want to be in tune with Nash's emotions and what he's thinking at a specific time, regardless of the time. So I will ask the same question, regardless if he gives me the answer and he means it. I'll ask the question 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
And the other day you asked, or you were very stern, but like a kind stern, and you said, nope, I'm good. And then you followed up and you said, I'm saying it stern because I truly mean that I am okay, or whatever I was asking you. And you did that in a loving way. You didn't just say, yeah, I'm fine, and then storm off. You said it. It probably wasn't like my favorite thing. I would like for you to, like, oh, honey, it's okay. But if
although I never call you honey.
You don't. But you were stern, but you were loving in that as well. Because I needed to hear that. I needed to hear that I am overthinking. Just what you are saying is what you mean. You know what I mean? So I felt like you did that really well the other day. And I appreciate you doing that.
Yeah, I think
that is your responsibility to help with that. Because I think the more that you do that, the more that you explain the reason you said something, or bring up something that you need to address with me, something else, like it can be anything, as long as you explain it and are doing it in a loving manner or with a loving heart behind it, you're sharing truth with me, and I need to be better about that. I think our relationship is a representation of that, where I was really not great at receiving truth and love in the beginning of our relationship. I'm still not great or terrific at it, but I think I have grown in that, and vice versa. I think sometimes our egos, if not all the time, our egos can get in the way and tell us that, oh, my spouse just doesn't like me. They just want to find everything wrong with me. But no, they're trying to find good aspects. Like, they're trying to build you to be better.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to realize in the moment, but the more you repeat something, I feel like we've said this before, just the more you repeat something in the discipline of the actions that you're doing in your relationship and in your daily lives, it's going to shape you. And I just think that is so powerful and so true.
Yeah, we talked about that last week, didn't we?
Either last week or the week before.
Just that there has to be discipline in the relationship. There has to be daily disciplines that you're practicing.
Yeah.
And if one of those is, doing your best to receive truth, well, then that's absolutely what it should be. If that's something that you struggle with, that should be a daily discipline. And
please do not take this as you just need to change your spouse, and you need to be okay if your spouse is just constantly trying to change something about you. That's not even remotely close to what is being said, but to be okay being stretched and realizing, okay, I'm not a perfect person. Jesus came to die for me because I am sinful and I have tendencies, and what are those things I could change if it means that my spouse, like, if they're getting to a point where they're addressing something that you're doing, probably something you should consider.
Right. Yeah. And that's where I know, like, the capacity part, like the stretching of the capacity is like, if you even look at the disciples in Scripture, right? Like, talk about their capacity being stretched. There were, Peter, fisherman, like, and now he's going out and preaching and stuff like that. I guarantee if you went to a marina, in your local town, like here in Charleston, like, if we went to a marina, I just asked a guy, hey, do you trust me? Let's go.
Come with me, let's
street preaching or whatever it is. Like, they're not going to do that.
Yeah. Or like Matthew was a tax collector, right? Like, imagine leaving that wealth.
Right.
And being equipped in a totally different way.
But it was because there was truth shared by Jesus. Now, it was a different kind of truth, but still truth shared.
Yeah.
Now, Jesus did share truth and love with them. Peter's
but I think
a huge example of that. And so there has to be a capacity stretch. Yeah. And getting truth shared to you is a huge step of that, right? Because especially if you hear it from somebody that you love, trusting that they're not just doing it or nitpicking, whatever, but that person that you love is genuinely wanting the best for you, and that they think it's an area that you can stretch in a little bit.
I think he also met them where they were at.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm going to use The Chosen as an example, but I've seen how they display those conversations between Jesus and the disciples in there, and you can read it in the Gospels. I think, what were we reading about? Peter? Doubting Peter? Who's Doubting Thomas?
Doubting Thomas.
Doubting Thomas.
Doubting Peter.
And then what did Peter do? He
denied Jesus.
Denied Jesus. But we talked about that on Easter, I believe, and how, like at our church, we talked about that, and how Jesus asked him multiple times and changed his language and his verbiage to accommodate to where Peter was at.
Right.
Like, he had the friendship love for Jesus, not the agape, the full-on encompassing. And so Jesus met him where he was at.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that we can model after, of like, okay, maybe it's not going to be, whenever you address your spouse and bring up something, it might not always go over smoothly. It might not be exactly what you want to say, but meeting your spouse where they're at. Does it make sense? And trying to get to that part. But I agree what you were saying way before about how the second part of this quote, but an enemy multiplies kisses. Like, the enemy can turn your addressing your spouse into such a negative thing, and they can fester that. He can fester that so much, but to recognize that your spouse loves you and that's the reason they're bringing it up is such an important fact.
I think that's why it's so important that you have a controlled tongue and a prayerful heart before you go into those conversations, because it really can be an opportunity for the enemy to, give you an opportunity where you think first what you're saying in your head is exactly what should be said, compared to, okay, Lord, I'm seeing this, how should I say it? Compared if you didn't go to prayer, what you're saying might not be received well. Like, Lord, Well,
you might not even be saying what you want to say.
What do you mean?
Like, you might, genuinely, I think sometimes if I don't go to God first before I talk to you, I think I can completely shift what I'm wanting, like initially going in to say, because suddenly the enemy is like, here's more ammo on what you can just throw into this conversation. And it might be, I might address you about, let's just say, an outfit. I don't even know. Like, I might talk to you, that's so random, but I might address you about...
It's not true, because we know who has the best style in our relationship.
Okay, anyway. But I might address you about that, but suddenly, if I don't go to God and ground myself with that, like, Jesus, tell me what I need to talk to Nash about. Do I need to talk to him about it? Do I not need to talk to him about it? If so, tell me what to say. If I don't do that, then I can go in and be like, well, your shirt, your shoes, your hair, you're this, you're this, you're this, your eyes. Like, that's just a very weird, that analogy is odd, but I'm just going to go with it, of the enemy can just contort the way that you think. And so that's why I do think it's important. And second, what you're saying of go to Jesus first. And what was the other part you said? Go to God and control your tongue. I don't feel like that's talked about.
Controlled tongue and a prayerful heart.
I don't think controlled tongue is talked about enough in a dating relationship, at least. I
feel like we had to talk about that.
What?
You and I had to talk about having a controlled tongue, so maybe it was more common for us.
Yeah. I just mean in other relationships.
You don't feel like other people are talking about it enough?
Not necessarily. Because I think I don't know.
Comment down below if Macey should write a book on a controlled tongue. Here we go.
I need to read a book about it, how to control your tongue. I don't need to write one. I think coming up from different upbringings, we've said it before, like your family is very quiet and mine is very loud.
Yeah.
And
nothing wrong with you.
I might not be saying something wrong, but the way I say it can be very hurtful sometimes to you. If like I've said twice today before we start recording, I don't mean anything by it. I'm not trying to be passive aggressive. I'm not trying to be snarky. Like, I have to say that because I just get very animated sometimes. And that's not necessarily a controlled tongue, but it is controlling your tone.
Mm-hmm. But there's, like you said before, there's a meeting where you're at. So I need to be more understanding of that. And maybe there's a couple of things that you can adjust.
And I think what I just did a few minutes ago, like before we started recording, of not changing what I'm saying or doing. Like, I still am being pretty animated, but also getting to your level where we both meet each other, where you don't take offense to what I'm saying.
Yep.
But I can say, that comes from my part of addressing, I'm not doing anything by this. I don't mean anything by how I said that. I promise, I love you. Like, do you know what I mean? I say I do know what I mean so much, it's killing me. But
Macey likes that one.
I really do. Comment down below if you think
That was really good.
Okay, anyway.
What's the reflection part? Let's talk about that, and then we'll kind of wrap it up.
The one I read before?
The reflection part.
I read the reflection. Good listen. I'm just kidding. That was so rude. Okay. The couples, do you lovingly dare to help your beloved even if you know the truth will hurt? That's one question.
What about the other one?
Well, let's talk about that.
I think we kind of just touched on that.
Couples, do you lovingly dare to help your beloved?
I think we
even
were
if you know
just
the
kind of
truth?
talking about that we do and what we had to.
Okay, anyway, the second question is, what measures do you take to make your communication as gentle as possible without compromising the truth? I think what we just said is that controlling your tongue and having a prayerful heart. Yeah. I think those are two active ways that you can learn to address your spouse about something that might be not favorable.
Yeah.
Do you agree?
I do agree. I think with access to the Holy Spirit like we do.
What do you mean by access? Elaborate.
Access, I mean, it's 24/7 and we hardly use it for our marriage. I think even me, for myself especially, like I just feel like there's just so many things that I don't go to the Holy Spirit on for guidance, and it's just like you have this access and it's so easy to go to, and it could be as simple as you just get a feeling that that's what you're supposed to say, or a feeling that you weren't supposed to say that, and you just stopped a whole all-night argument that you could have had because you decided you didn't want to talk to God about it.
100% of the time when we have separated and like separate ourselves from one each other and go, that sounded so bad.
You put such a big space at the
so
end of that.
sorry. When we've gotten into an argument and then we separate and go into different rooms
and pray
for 10 minutes and pray, 100% of the time that works. 100% of the time. Why don't we do that more?
But some people, some people might need to pray together. Being alone is not for everybody, when you're in an argument.
Sometimes it's not for me. Sometimes I do need to be in the same room. We're not leaving.
Am like, I'm good on my own. Let me just think about this for a minute. But Macey really can be either way. It just depends on the day. Like, but that's, I have to understand that. It can be
it's a little
tricky
confusing,
sometimes, but
I don't even understand it.
And so, like, there's like, I would just say hit those two things again. It's like, just go with a prayerful heart and a controlled tongue. Like,
even if it is just asking God, do I need to go to my spouse and
do I need to say it?
And if so, what do I need to say? It can be as simple as that, and then just listening.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's really good. The last part. Meditate on which side of Ephesians 4:15 is harder for you temperamentally, the truthfulness or the graciousness. It's good.
Truthfulness for me, for sure.
Hearing the truth is harder?
No, I think giving the truth. I should say.
I agree.
I definitely struggle with... then I guess the graciousness would be my struggle. I don't feel like I give you enough grace.
Elaborate.
I think what I'm saying sometimes isn't wrong. I'm just going about it in a very...
checklist kind of manner, I think.
Checklist, but also like I'm talking to another dude. Like, guys, your wife is not another dude that you can just say... We have a few more open emotions. Things about, right? Like, if I'm going to say something, it's not going to hit the same way. And so if I'm even thinking that, like, again, it goes back to just praying about it. And asking for a calm spirit, like replacing that, like the name of the podcast, replacing that steel side, which is awesome, right, for certain times. But in moments like that where you're sharing truth, you probably want a little more of the velvet, a little more of the gracious, a little more of the soft heart kind of a deal. And so I think I definitely can struggle with that.
I have a hard time with... I think I have a hard time hearing the truth. But I feel like... How do you think I am with grace? Because I think I'm pretty bad with hearing truth. Like, I think I am typical to take offense. That's something I think we're still working on.
Mm-hmm.
But graciousness, I feel like I'm better at that.
Yeah, I think you're pretty good at it.
I don't know. I would like to
I think there's definitely a time where
I was not.
You shared a lot of truth and there was not a ton of love.
That's where I think I'm scarred from that time
Yeah.
when I was not good at sharing it and I was just...
I think that was more of an annoyance on your part.
What do you mean, more of annoyance?
Like, there were just things that I was doing that frustrated you. And it
yeah,
wasn't
I had
necessarily
never
like
dated with
flaws.
I had never dated anybody, and I was
Yeah.
like, first of all, don't know how to address this, but I feel like I need to address every little thing that you do.
Right.
Which is so far from the truth.
And again, it goes back to just like...
If I would have asked God, I could have saved us a lot of arguments. So, right?
And yeah, if you feel like you're talking to God and you don't have as much clarity on it, talk to somebody that you trust. Like, just talk to somebody. If it's
friends.
a big deal, and if it's something that you really feel like you need to talk about, mentors, friends that you trust, parents, whatever.
Which I think this is also applicable to them, because if you're willing and able to go to them with help about how to address your spouse, you should be able to also address them about things that they might be doing wrong or that.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I mean, especially a mentor, but for sure a friend too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So, takeaway. At least for me, I feel like us talking about this. Thanks for hanging out with us in a kind of an honest conversation. Like, this is really what our mornings are like. Is when you're wanting to share that truth with your spouse, or even if it's a friend. Prayerful heart and a controlled tongue.
Yeah.
2 steps to take before you kind of go into that.
Mm-hmm.
I think even us, we're going to try to apply that a lot more. I feel like we just kind of gave ourselves a lesson.
We said it last week, but truthfully, having a little devotion like this, we're reading Timothy Keller and Kathy Keller's
their marriage devotional.
A Year of Daily Devotions, The Meaning of Marriage.
Yeah.
Something like this.
Super good. Go pick it up.
We read the entire thing in 2 minutes and then talked about it for a few.
Yeah.
Like, it's so simple but effective, and I've heard this.
Everybody has time for it.
Yes, and I've heard this specific message probably 4 times.
Yeah.
Yet it doesn't get old.
Right.
And we can still talk about it in detail over and over again.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So, I challenge you guys. Find a devotional if you don't have one. If you do, challenge you to keep doing it.
Yeah.
So, yep.
Good stuff.
Catch us next week. I believe we might do some solo podcasts in the future.
Yeah.
Nash talking about the steel side and me talking about the velvet side, vice versa. I think girls too can have
a little bit of both. Yeah.
A little bit of both. So
yeah,
I would love to talk about that, and I think we will soon.
Yeah. We'll see you guys next week.
Yeah. Bye. Guys.